control is different from protecting. Control gives us this idea that we can manage the outcome of whatever we're doing, and we just don't have that kind of power.
Welcome to the Honestly Adoption Podcast, a show about adoption, foster care, advocacy, and becoming the best caregiver possible. Pull up a chair. We're glad you've joined us. Here are your hosts, Mike and Kristen Berry.
Hey friends, welcome to the Honestly Adoption Podcast. And if you are brand new, first time checking us out, welcome to you. We're so glad you're here. We hope you get a lot out of this show. We are kicking off season 24. It's kind of crazy that we've been doing this now for 24 seasons. Launched this in October 2015. We've already produced 24 seasons. I'm so excited to do this because we're almost at 200 episodes. I'm Mike Berry, and along with Kristen Berry, we are the hosts for this show. And man, welcome. We're going to be talking in this very first episode for season 24 about control. Those of you that are listening in that joined us recently or yesterday, depending on when you're listening to this, for Insight one-day training, man, what an amazing online experience that was. But during that training, Kristen did a session on learning to control what you can control. Because you guys know as well as we do that when you are parenting children who have a trauma history, you can't control behavior. You've probably tried to control behaviors. You've probably tried to control outcomes. You've probably tried to, almost with a death grip on the situation, try to manipulate or direct or dictate. It just doesn't work, right? As we say, trauma doesn't play by the rules. You can't control behaviors. And often that leaves people feeling pretty desperate, pretty hopeless. So we're going to jump into that topic here in just a moment. Before we do, we want to extend a really special offer to you guys, podcast audience, podcast listeners. We're making some big changes in our Oasis community, which is our virtual support, resource, and training site created for foster and adoptive parents. And right now, you can activate a 30-day free trial, no strings attached. You can take advantage of everything that Oasis has to offer for 30 days, completely on us, no strings attached. Click the link in the show notes or visit honestlyadoption.com/Oasis trial to activate that. And we hope you guys join us because in Oasis, we have expert training videos. We have weekly Zoom meetups. We have an exclusive private Facebook group. And very soon, we are about to release, for Oasis members only, our Honestly Adoption University All Access Pass, which gives you access to all the training content that we have created, video series, training webinars, online courses, everything. So activate that free membership, check it out, spend some time with us. And again, if it's not for you, that's okay. No strings attached. So let's jump into this topic. Okay, so we did one-day training just yesterday as we're recording this. And Kristen, you talked about learning to control what you can control. So let's talk about that for a minute because people are probably thinking, yeah, I've tried that and I'm still trying that. So first of all, let's start here. Why do we try to control our children's behaviors? Why do we try to control the outcomes, the scenarios, situations? Why is that something that we struggle with as caregivers?
Wow. I mean, I think that's probably a whole conversation in and of itself, but I think it boils down to a few things. Number one being, we can see more clearly. We can't see another person's life clearly, but we can see more clearly where our kids are and where they're going, because we've already been there. We've already grown up. We know our brains are fully developed. We can see consequences and actions and how those things match up and what might happen. So I think number one, we tend to spend a lot of time controlling because we want our kids to be safe and healthy. When you think of, I always like to take people back to what it is like to parent a newborn. You do a lot of control. Of course, you can't control a newborn, but you do a lot of controlling your environment. Is it quiet enough? Am I running a fan so they can sleep? How many bottles do I have available? When do they need to eat next? Have I purchased enough diapers? Which diapers don't make their little bottom break out and diaper rash? So we just do a lot of, organizing, controlling. And so that then kind of translates through the journey of parenting. Does my child have a warm enough winter coat? Does my child have everything that they need for school? Is my child getting enough sleep at night? Do they have enough, food? Have we tested them for food allergies? What's bothering them right now? Why are they feeling uncomfortable? Okay, so we do a lot of that just as a natural part of our parenting. We want the best for our kids. And if we can do our best, then maybe they can have the best. They can have everything that they need. So I think some of our control comes from that. Just our desire to protect our children, to keep them safe and to help them be as successful as they can be. Secondly, I think that the majority of parents, me for sure, I'm worried about what people think of me. Am I doing a good job? What does the neighbor think? Are my kids wearing clothes that match? Are they wearing clothes that are clean? Is their hair clean? What's the teacher think when they show up to school and they don't have, crayons or a notebook or something like that? They forgot their permission slip. So, but part of it is just, how we represent ourselves and how we present ourselves to the world around us. As foster and adoptive parents, then we have another layer where many of us are feeling an obligation toward the many people that are involved in the adoption process. Number one, our child. We owe it to our child to do our very best. Two, we owe it to our child's biological parents. Whatever the circumstances are that brought the child into our home, we are now committed to raising someone else's child. And so there's this complexity to that. This is our child. We love them. We want the best for them. And also, this child is someone else's child. So we have this bigger, complex, broader sense of belonging, a sense of, I don't even know what the word is, this larger family. It's one thing to say to yourself, I have this child and I will do my very best. It's another thing to say, I have this child and I will do my very best. And also to say, I'm raising your child. And I will do my very best. So I think that we have some kind of complex layers of why control becomes a part of our life as parenting. Some of those things are just pretty natural and normal. And we're just doing our best to create a safe environment. We're just doing our best to provide for our child. And then some of those things become those bigger narratives that we tell ourselves. Am I the best mom? Am I doing the best? Am I fulfilling the promise I made to my child's biological family or their grandparents or even a judge or a caseworker? Am I meeting all the expectations that others have for me? Not to mention, am I meeting all the expectations my child has for me? I wasn't even thinking about the fact that a lot of us have adopted older children. They knew they were being adopted. Some of us have even adopted teenagers. And when that agreement was made, we made an agreement with a child to be their parent. So am I meeting the expectation that my child has for me? So there's a lot there. And so I think that those are, at least for me, the core of why control becomes a part of who I am as a parent.
Yeah. And you said something that I think really resonates with our audience, most of which are foster parents or their adoptive parents, but they were formerly foster parents. But in any case, we're under a microscope. Our family is different from the typical American family, the typical family. And there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of pressure to not be put on the spot, to not have a spotlight on us, or to not have people point at us and say, they're out of control, or I told you so. It's the people that are close to us. So I think that that's a reason why we default to control, because we're trying so desperately to keep ourselves from becoming the stereotypes that center around foster and adoptive families. And I think that becomes our default,
And I think you're pointing to something that I didn't say a minute ago, but is such a big part of that. We want to protect our kids.
Oh, totally.
From those stereotypes. So if our child is, having a very natural behavior or reaction to something, I don't know anybody with biological children or foster children or adoptive children that have gone through life without a temper tantrum in public.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty typical behavior. So even when our children are struggling in a very typical way, or having a behavior that's very typical, the world can be very unfair to our children. And they can look in and say, see, foster kids do that. See, adopted kids do that.
Yeah, our kids become stereotypes. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned our family. I mentioned ourselves. But the truth is, a lot of that, again, at least for me, that desire to control the outcome of everything, or to control each situation, has to do with the fact that I've stood there and heard those kind of comments. I know what kind of world my kids are walking into, and all I'm thinking is, I don't want someone to say that about you. I don't want someone, and for what it's worth, I mean, I think we're going to talk about this a little bit. Doesn't really matter. Somebody who would say that about your child is not really a person you need to be listening to.
That's not the person you want in your inner circle. It's not the P. And as we've often said, because we used to work in the church, which, that's like, talk about a microscope, so we were adoptive parents, foster parents, and we were church employees. And there is no greater pressure or microscope on you. And, it's hard, and it's difficult. So you do default to that. So, and we're in that position too, because we now have older children, and, I'm not going to get into the details there, but, you want so much better for your kids. And even though there's a trauma history,
much better, you want so much good.
So much good. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But in spite of trauma histories, you still are like, man, I want to see good things for you. I want you to experience good things. And I think that leads us to control tactics that just don't work.
Right.
Yeah. So in yesterday's training, and again, if you're listening to this, whenever you're listening to this, maybe Insight One Day training happened a while ago. It was an exclusive training we hosted with Jessica Sinarski, Dr. Laura Anderson. Kristen and I both spoke. Kristen did a session on learning to control what you can control. One of the things that you did that I thought was really cool, and a lot of the attendees really resonated with this, was that you broke it down by myths versus truth. You presented the myths, and then you countered that with the truths. So I'm wondering if for our listeners that are tuning in that did not attend one day, or they were there at one day and they're like, yeah, give me some more. I'd love to hear this again. Let's walk through some of those myths and then some of the truths that we need to remember as parents, as caregivers, because this is hard. It's hard to release control when all we want to do is, like we just said, we want good things for our kids. But let's talk about myths versus truths.
Well, I don't want to read them all. I actually have a list of things that you and I just kind of came up with talking about what is it that you and I struggle with in our home. And a lot of these myths were, some broad, some specific to us. But I think that there is just this overall and underlying myth that we have control over other people, over circumstances.
Yeah.
Over the world. I often think, it's tornado season. I often think if I sit here and I worry about it enough, I will prevent a tornado from zipping through our Midwest town and over our house and killing all of us. Because I live, in a pretty high place of anxiety all the time. So I sort of had this feeling like I better stay vigilant because it's tornado season. Well, now that's just a myth. I'm not in control of whether or not we have a tornado, period. Yeah. I'm just not.
But you are in control of what we do, right. How we react to that.
Right. So I can be in control of talking with my kids and creating a plan. If there's a tornado, do you remember what we're supposed to do? I can be in control of, we don't have tornado sirens here because we live kind of far out. So I can be in control of making sure that we have some sort of emergency warning system.
Right.
Of course, it's 2021. As we're recording this, everyone has an emergency system on their phone. We all get alerts. All right. So make sure you've got that set up. So what can't I control? A tornado. What can I control? My preparedness. Am I ready? Am I thinking ahead? Do I have a plan? One of the things that you and I do is, if a big storm is coming in, if we see that there's, tornado watch, maybe the sky's looking a little green and dark. We know the warning signs. We know what we're looking for. We did just see a tornado a couple weeks ago, so that was scary. So what do? We have our shoes lined up by the basement. We may have the kids come downstairs. We have a 2-story house, come downstairs and sleep in the family room till it's over so that we can get quickly to the basement. Put the animals in their kennels so we haven't lost them. We know where they are. So there are a few steps that we can take. I can't control a tornado. I can control whether or not I'm prepared if something like that happens.
Yeah.
So when you translate that then to children, if you can kind of go back to some of those examples, what do I have control over? Very little. As a human, I have very, very little control over the world around me. And I have very little to no control over another human being. And so you and I have had a lot of these conversations as our children have gotten older. Definitely when they're little, if they throw a tantrum in a public place, you pick them up and you walk out. You have some more control. When our children were little, we buckled them into a 5-point harness car seat because, we can't control the world around us, but we can do our best to keep them safe. So we had some control. We knew that they were in a good car seat. We knew that they were safe in the car. We knew that we could pick them up and leave, if things had gotten bad. But as your parenting grows, your ability to let go a little needs to grow too. And that's a place that you and I have been quite a lot. We are now parenting one preteen. That's our youngest, one preteen.
It's crazy.
4 teenagers, and we have 3 young adult children. And we kind of still want to step in. And there are times, and we do step in. And I want to be clear, even as we're talking about control what you can control. I can't control who my teenager makes friends with. But I do have a minor teenager. So this is not, a 19-year-old. This is teenager, high school age, middle school age. I can't control who they become friends with. That's not really something I have power over. I can't control how they feel about themselves or how they feel about the world around them. As a foster and adoptive parent, I can't control how they feel about their adoption, how they feel about their biological family, how they feel about me. Those are things I can't control. If I see that my child is doing a dangerous behavior, I can control some things. So, and that's, I think, the fine line that you and I have been walking. We look at each situation and we say, is there something here that I can do something about? And sometimes we can. If our child is using a phone in an inappropriate way, we can take it away. That's our job. I mean, we can do that. If we see that our child is self-harming, we can look around our house and take the items out that they might self-harm with. Do we have 100% control over that child? No,
we don't.
If a child is self-harming, they may find something at school. They may find something in the yard. They may find something at a friend's house. We can't control all of it, but we can look around at our environment and say, what can I do? To the best of my ability, I can make this home as safe as possible. To the best of my ability, I can remove contact with harmful people by removing the phone. Not every child needs to have a phone. That's not a right. That's a privilege. What can I control? I can't make myself or make my child. Sometimes I can't make myself fall asleep. That was really telling. I can't make my child fall asleep. But what can I do? I can look around at the environment and say, what can I do leading up to bedtime that will help this child feel more secure? I can begin to identify some things that are causing the child not to sleep well. And this is an infant all the way up through, your teenager, young adult child. I can't make them go to sleep. I can't make a newborn go to sleep. But what can I do? I can look around at my environment. I can say, even to an older child, hey, tell me what's going through your mind while you're getting ready for bed. Yeah. Tell me what things make your body feel relaxed. Would you like to try this weighted blanket? Plug for Capable weighted products, which wasn't intentional to be there, but their products are great. So is that something I can do? I can put the weighted blanket on their bed and see if that just feels good around their body. I can't control if they sleep under the weighted blanket. And so this is the conversation that you and I are having all the time, because one thing that I think we do as humans is we say, aha, I've got the solution. Maybe we've got a young adult child who's struggling through budgeting. And we say, no problem. I've been an adult for decades now. I'm pretty good at budgeting. Come on, let's sit down. I'll help you budget. We can't control what our child does with that budget. And so you and I have had this problem a lot where we say, I've got the solution. Come on, honey, come on over for dinner and we'll chat through your budget. We'll fix it for you. We got this. No problem. Here, let's do the envelope system. Let's write everything down on paper. Let's set message reminders. Let's, look at your bank account. Let's see what bills we can get rid of. Man, you and I have a great solution. And then we think, well, that'll be the answer. Yeah. And a couple weeks later, when our child is not doing the thing we told them to do, we're shocked. Yeah. Yeah. But our children, including our adult children, are actual humans themselves.
They're individual humans. Yeah. Yeah.
As we've been talking quite a bit about control what you can control, there's another layer to this too about how we feel about ourselves in the midst of that. Because one thing that you and I have gotten caught up in then is that sense that we have some power over what our children do, what our children think, what our children say. Yeah. And in our best intentions, we say something like, I can help you with this. Come on, let's get this. We've got it together. There's nothing wrong with that. But then you and I tend to walk away and we say, this is how it's going to go now. This is going to be good. It's going to be so good. And then we're shocked or sad or disappointed or frustrated or worried. Worried is a big one, filled with anxiety because that child didn't do exactly what we said. Yeah. And those just aren't things that we can control. Yeah. We don't have power over another human being. What we do have power over is ourselves. Yeah. And as we've talked about some of these different things that we can or can't control, one of those is how do we respond? For those of us who are raising foster and adopted children, for one, we know that our kids have experienced trauma, period. End of story. They have, no matter when they came into our home. So we are raising a child who experienced, really the most basic trauma. At the core of our being is this connection to our parents. And our children have another set of parents that they don't live with. So as we're then raising children with this next layer, we can get into a place where we say, I've been learning and growing myself. And I know that my child needs to heal. And here's what we're going to do about it. And it can be very tempting to think that we have power over when they heal and if they heal,
Yeah.
and what reconciliation looks like with their family, or what reconciliation looks like with us or with a sibling, or what it looks like to feel really proud of their identity, or what it looks like for them to experience their birthday or hard things or sad stories. We do not get to decide that.
Yeah.
And so, that it's another layer where I think as we get more educated, we can be really tempted to then try to take the reins back again. I learned all about what you're going through, honey. Here, I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. So we can't control the outcome of that.
Yeah.
What we can control is ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We can control how much we learn. We can control how well we're educated about our children. We can control how well we listen to their stories, how well we listen to their behaviors, how well we listen to their circumstances. We can control that part of it, our part of it. We can control, our curiosity, the way that we lean in and provide a safe place to land. We cannot control what our kids do with that next.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things that you and I've talked quite a bit about as well is, would we want anyone else to control us? And you and I have been very lucky as we came into adulthood that both of our sets of parents just, I don't know, seem to trust that you and I are going to make good decisions, or I
don't think
we're going to do the right thing with life. Or
there's never been one moment where either one of our families tried to control anything we were doing, which wouldn't work anyways, because we just don't. We are not the type of people that would function very well under somebody. And I'm saying this very nicely. It's a nice way to say we don't do well with authority.
Well, maybe not, but who does?
Who does?
And so
especially when you're an adult.
When you can put yourself into your child's shoes and see what is it that I would need in this circumstance, and how can I help? How can I support and provide that for my child? You and I do not call our parents and ask if we should be friends with someone.
Yeah.
Have we made friends that weren't good friends? Yeah. But nobody told us what to do there. We've had the kind of parents that we said, man, so-and-so just didn't turn out to be a very good friend. And maybe our parents say something like, I'm really sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
But you and I have struggled through that. Well, I told you not to be friends with them.
Yeah.
I knew they were bad news. And then our child gets frustrated and we think, well, gosh, I'm just giving them good advice. Why are they mad? So I think that, we can control, well, that kind of took a veer. We can control, what we learn and know about our children, but we can't control what they do. We can control what we provide for them. But we can't control what they do with that. So, you may save up money for your child to go to college, and they may get there their first year and make great friends, and get really good grades and find something they're passionate about, join a club, and they love it. Or maybe you've saved up money for your child to go to college, and your child gets to college and they just party and drop out of all their classes. You don't have power over that. What do you have power over?
It's hard to watch that, but you don't have power over it.
Right. But what do you have power over? Yourself. So you may have to go back to your child and say, wow, that did not go the way I thought it was going to go. It was super expensive to send you this year. I can see that was not something that you were really invested in. Let's sit down and have a conversation about this, because I'm not shelling out, 10, 15, 20, 80 $1,000 for next year. So what do I have power over? I'm not going to follow my kid through college, but I can say, hey, that's not something I can financially support, because that's not a good use of my money.
Yeah.
And that's just us going through life with humans. We can get educated about our child's experience with trauma. We can get educated if our child is experiencing a struggle with mental illness or just mental health issues. We can get educated about that. We cannot control the outcome.
Yeah.
And so what can we control? One of the things that you and I have had so many conversations about in our own home are sort of those disappointing things that might happen. Like, oh, shoot, our kid got in trouble at school today. How embarrassing. Man, I'm really mad. I'm really frustrated. Or ask them not to do that. You and I aren't going to go back and experience elementary school or middle school. I'm already done with that. So I'm not going to go back and behave properly in fourth grade. I don't want to do it again. I already did it. But what can I do? I can support my child through their natural consequence. Maybe they got sent to the principal's office. It was embarrassing. That really stinks. Maybe we do have a consequence at home. We say, shoot, that's like the third time this week. You can't do that anymore. So if you have that behavior again, we're not going to have any TV time tonight. So I have power over that. I don't actually have power over what my child does at school. So I need to kind of decide, where do I fit in this scenario? Where do I fit in this relationship? And I have power over myself. I have power over, my home, the TV remote, things like that. So I can take some control over those things. I can't take control over my child. Yeah. So, supporting, here's another thing. If my child is having an experience like that at school, maybe my child's IEP needs to be changed. I actually have control over that, because right now I'm still the adult in this scenario. So I may need to call the school and say, look, looks like my child is, acting up or getting in trouble every day at 12:30. You're sending me a note saying, can we talk about what's happening before that? And is there something we can write into the IEP that will help my child to navigate this better? So what do I have power over? I have power over the way I interact with the school. I have power over the way I interact with my child. I have power over the way that, that I support my child. Maybe I need to drive my child to Saturday school. What do I do with that time? How do I take control over myself? I might be mad. And it's okay to say, I'm feeling really mad. I did not want to do Saturday school today. I'm not happy. Let's get in the car. I'll drive you there. But I also have control over myself and the positive things I say too. I might say, I'm pretty ticked right now. I did not want to do this on my Saturday. I do want you to know that I love you no matter what. And at the end of Saturday school, this is done, or maybe you've had a consequence at home. At the end of this consequence, at the end of this weekend, it's over. Let's go back to school on Monday. Let's do what we need to do. Yeah. I have control over myself. I have control over the way that I respond to my child. I have control over the thoughts that I think about my child, about myself, about my community. I have control over that.
Yeah.
And I can choose to find ways to stay connected even when things are difficult.
Yeah, it's so important. Yeah. This is liberating for parents. I think that this concept of control what you can control, and this is something we teach when we talk about behavior response, learning to control what you can control. It's liberating for parents because when you look at we've been talking kind of like a broad stroke, but when you start to look at those of you that are parenting children who are elementary age, preteen, teenagers, especially teenagers, this releases you from a lot of stress and anxiety. There are stories that we've heard from people where they've tried to force their child to do this, or tried to force their child to stop eating junk food at school, right?
Right.
Futile battle, right? You have a 15-year-old who goes to school and gets candy from their friends. There's nothing you can do about that. But what can you do? What can you control? You can control the snacks that you have in your home, right? So that 15-year-old comes home and in defiance says, well, I don't understand why we don't have Fruit Loops, or why I don't understand why we don't have, Twinkies in the cabinet, right? Because so-and-so has those. well, this isn't so-and-so's house,
Right.
I'm the one that buys the groceries. And we faced this personally,
especially food
a couple of years ago, especially with food.
Especially growing up the way that I grew up, my parents were really strict about food and we had only healthy food at home. And dude, I get it.
But it releases you. I mean, we have a close friend who, several years ago was dealing with a defiant teenager, and this teenager in particular would not leave the house and just demanded that he be able to, watch TV whenever he wants to and surf the internet and things like that. And, here's the control what you can control piece. You can't make a 15-year-old who's the size of a grown adult leave the house. Is going to end up in a fist fight or carry them.
Can I carry them?
Yeah. But what can you do? Disable the internet.
Well,
quietly, peacefully, no battle. The remotes are locked up. So you're removing that, and that's what you can control, right? So the defiant teenager stands in the house with their arms folded, refusing to leave the house. That's fine. It's going to be a boring day, but and maybe there's more to that. Maybe there are reasons that you're really struggling or that child is not safe at home, but you have to find the piece of that you have control over. Yeah.
And only do that.
Yeah.
And you'll spin your wheels if you think that you can engage in a battle over everything. And, I want to talk a little bit about teenagers too, particularly teenagers, because it is in their DNA. It is the way that teenagers are made to begin to separate from mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really pretty unreasonable to think that our children will say, gosh, mom and dad, you're just such a good example. Everything I do, I'm going to run it past you first. That's not going to happen. Kids are breaking away. They're becoming their own people. It is their job to test boundaries. So what can we do? We can't keep them from testing the boundaries. That's just a teenager thing to do. What can we do? We can have some parental locks on the phone or the internet. We can, we've got Find My iPhone, and they'll never put their phone down anywhere. So they're going to travel with their phone. If they got their phone, we can just check and make sure, okay, looks like they're really at school right now. They're not skipping school. And we can show up a little early someplace that, if we're questioning, I'm not sure my kid was telling me the entire truth about what's going on. Show up a couple minutes early. We can have access to passwords to devices. We can still call our kids' teachers, all the way through high school. We can call and say, hey, I just want to check in. I'm getting 2 different stories at home about, what's due in physics class. Sometimes it seems a little like hovering. I mean, maybe it would be hovering if I attended school with my child. I'm not, above doing that. I'll do that if I have to. That would be embarrassing. But I can still
for
touch
them,
base.
Not for us.
Right.
I'm not going to be embarrassed.
Staying connected is something that I can have control over. So I can say something like, hey, honey, let's go and get a cup of coffee together. Let's go get a hot chocolate together.
Yeah.
Can I make that child feel connected to me in that moment? No. Can I make them tell me, why they just broke up with their boyfriend and all the details? No. Yeah. But can I be in charge of offering a trip to go get hot chocolate? Can I be in charge of, ordering the hot chocolate and paying for the hot chocolate? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So I can be in control of my side of this relationship. When it comes to things like protecting, I think that control is different from protecting. Control gives us this idea that we can manage the outcome of whatever we're doing. And we just don't have that kind of power.
Right.
Protecting can be something different. We actually had a child who we thought was not going to finish that last couple months of 12th grade.
Oh my gosh.
And
never forget that moment.
I thought that probably took years off our life. Do we just stand back and say, well, you are who you are and you're a human and I can't control you anyway? No, I couldn't control that child. That ship had sailed. This is an almost adult, young adult child, but they weren't finishing the rest of their work. So what could we say? We could say, shoot, I put the car keys up. They're done. Like, when I see your work is turned in for 12th grade, we'll talk about driving again, but that's my car. I paid for the car. I paid for the car insurance. That's my car. Car keys are going out. I'm sorry. That is not happening. We're not doing anything extra until I see that your things are turned in. You and I made an agreement when our older kids were younger that we weren't going to allow them to buy things like a cell phone or a car. Why? Because we anticipated that there might be a day that, there were 8 weeks left of 12th grade and the child wasn't doing their work. So then those become very logical things that we do have control over. Hey, this is my phone. I'm the one who paid for it. I'm going to have to call the phone company and shut the line down until your work is done. Because I can see that, you're not going to do that. You just want to look at the phone. I have control over what's going on in the house. Maybe for those 8 weeks, I just shut the TV off. Maybe for those 8 weeks, I ask the other kids to go do something else. Hey, your sibling really has to pass 12th grade, so I have control over creating this environment that my child might be able to get that last 8 weeks of work done in. Could our child have gone through those 8 weeks and decided not doing it? Yes. But you and I in that moment chose to control what we could control. So we were able to just go back, no shame, no screaming, no yelling, just say, hey, this isn't good. You do not want to have to repeat 12th grade. You do not want to drop out of school when you have 8 weeks to go. You do not, those are not all logical decisions. And our job is to get you through this next step. And so I know it's disappointing, but we're putting the car keys up. We can talk about driving again when you've got your diploma.
And we didn't lecture. That's it. That's
that's it. I love you too much.
Calmly, calmly, with compassion, with love. And that's it.
Yep. And could our child have said, F you, I'm walking out the door and I'm not doing it? Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said for controlling yourself. I think if you and I would have escalated and screamed and yelled and shamed and stomped and threatened to take other things away, I don't even know what, at that point it was dire here, but we could have done that. And then what would have happened? But we had to say, okay, we've got this. We're going to go in and talk with this child and we are going to say just this. I love you so much. I see that you're angry with me. These are the things that I'm removing because they're a distraction. I'm not going to engage with an argument or conversation about that. When you have the last assignment turned in and I see that you are going to graduate, I am going to hand the phone back. You are back to being allowed to drive. You can have all your friends over for a party. We will do all of it. But right now, we're not going to waste the time on an argument. We're not going to yell and scream and shame. These are just the things we're removing because they're a distraction. And we love you so much. I wish that child would have said, I love you too. That child said, I hate you. This is terrible. You're the worst parents ever. And
said some other things too. So, but we won't say that on here.
That child could have just walked out the door and didn't. That child sat at the dining room table for a literal 8 weeks. What did we have power over? We had power over staying connected. That child was super ticked at us at that moment and ticked at themselves too. What could we do? Fix a cup of tea. Hey, I'm fixing a cup of tea. You want a cup of tea? I see that you're working really hard. Hey, I made these cookies. You want me to bring you a cookie? Made your favorite dinner tonight. I'm super excited. I saw that you turned another assignment and you've got this. You're almost done. We have control over ourselves. We do not have control over the other person. What would we have done if that child would have called the school and dropped out? I don't know. Cross that bridge when we get there. But when we do have control over ourselves, the outcome doesn't always go the way we want it to. But we can get to the outcome in a way that keeps us connected. And that's what's really important. And that is from newborn until I'm in my 40s. So I don't know what'll happen after this. But I have to say that when my mom stays connected with me, that is a very valuable relationship.
Right.
My mom and I still have a great relationship, and I'm in my 40s. Why? Because my mom controls the things that she can control. She could never make me sleep, but she loved me anyway. You know, she set good boundaries for me. She didn't give me things that she didn't want me to have, but she didn't try to, shame and yell at and control every little detail of what I'm doing. And that has meant that we've grown into a really good mother-child friendship at this point. And so, as we're controlling what we can control, we're remembering that at the center of all of this is trust building. At the center of all of this is connection. And in our parenting, we're going to find that our children are able to heal. They are able to find their own identity. They are able to grow. They are able to stumble and fall and get up and maybe even return home and say, I need some help. Or maybe just find a different way of doing something that we hadn't even thought of before. But they're going to be able to do that with our support and with our connection, and with our security in who we are.
Yeah. And we have story after story we could tell you guys about, parents, including us, that applied these strategies, that really ask some big questions. What can I control here? And it was a dire situation. It was a dark situation when it was happening. But then you fast forward a couple of years down the road, and there's a healed relationship. There's a connected relationship. It's not always the case, right? And sometimes this takes years. It could take a lifetime to build that connection. But I can tell you this: when you choose to take a step back and ask yourself, what can I control in this situation? And you make connection and building trust and healing a priority, you're going to experience transformation. Like we have seen that personally on our journey. 10 years ago, our story. You've probably heard our story. 10 years ago, we were doing everything wrong, right? And then we went through a transformation on our own, with ourselves, and it changed how we approached our kids. And it's changed a lot for us. It's transformed. It's changed everything. It's brought healing and connectedness. And we could tell you story after story about that. And this probably isn't a bigger conversation beyond this episode, but we hope you guys have gotten a lot out of this. We hope that this has helped you, has given you insight into your own journey and your relationship with your child, and even the struggles that you have with your child. So guys, thank you for tuning in to this season 24 debut. As always, if you need anything, reach out to us, connect with us, ask questions. And make sure you stop over to our podcast website, honestlyadoption.com/podcast. You can catch up on past episodes, especially if you're new to the show. Check out we've got several seasons posted. Check out some of those past seasons. And thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of the Honestly Adoption Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Honestly Adoption Podcast, a resource courtesy of the Honestly Adoption Company. To learn more about us, visit www.honestlyadoption.com.